Welcome to He Believes, She Feels podcast. Happy to be here. I have Crissie Travino, nurse, mentor, and also intuitive living. Um, Pleasure to have you on, Crissie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. It took us long enough to do this.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Ironing out
So,
all the kinks.
yeah, I kind of wanted to just start and kind of just talk a little bit about your experience and what you came from and what you've been through in your life and kind of just give the audience a little bit about yourself to going forward.
Okay. Um, well, I had my first spiritual awakening when I was about 4 or 5. Uh, it was very scary. I was essentially what came in. I'm not sure if it was an angel or if it was a totem because it looked kind of like a totem. It was a combination of animals, and one of them had wings. I'm not sure if there was a human combination in there. This was a long time ago. But that was the first thing that I saw. And it just steadily, it didn't even say anything. It just steadily approached my bed
And how
that
old
night.
were you at the time?
Probably about 4 or 5. I remember the next morning trying to tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, there was something in my room. And this was this became a regular occurrence. She's like, No, you just had a nightmare. I'm like, No, Mom, I was awake. Like, I'm trying to tell her I was awake, and they didn't get it, but it was it was an experience, that's for sure. Yeah.
And how did you feel at the time at that age when you had your first like
I
spiritual
was
encounter?
terrified.
I can only imagine your parents probably didn't believe you at the time.
No, they thought I was having nightmares. That was a regular thing. So, yeah.
And how often did you see them after you said?
It varied. I would see different spirits at different times. I had one try to talk to me. It wanted to play with me one night. And I had a feeling it was deceiving me or trying to. I didn't trust it. I was probably about 5. And I asked it what its name was. And it said Danielle, which was my cousin's name. And I thought it was trying to deceive me. So I told it no and that I was going back to sleep.
Now, do they all look alike, or was it like something they all look differently? I guess how do you describe them?
They all look differently. A lot of them that I saw at that time were figures outlined in green.
Green.
Yeah, they were outlined in green. That was a very low vibrational household based in fear. So anything scary got pulled into me. Sometimes I couldn't really see full figures. I would get sleep paralysis and see dark figures over me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that you think back about it, it's so crazy how much we've experienced, right?
Oh, yeah. It was really intense in childhood and like my teen years. And then going into my 20s, even, it was still pretty difficult.
And what happened then? Did you have another encounter in your 20s?
Yeah, I actually ran into my first major spiritual mentor at the time. And
Okay.
she was an intuitive and a medium also. And she was able to guide me through a little bit in the process. She's the one, oh, yeah, because I was seeing shimmering, sparkling lights when I was near water. And she explained to me that I was seeing angels.
Really?
And I actually started intentionally working with the archangels at that time.
Tell me a little bit more about that, like you working with the archangels.
Yeah. Raphael is my favorite angel to work with, actually,
You're
because
welcome.
he is a healing angel. So I've worked most closely with him. Also, Michael for protection. Um, I've worked with other ones too. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but
No, no, no. Go ahead. Talk a little bit more about them, so at least we have some more information in regards to if nobody's ever worked with any archangels or anything in that
angel.
scenario.
So I've worked with Raziel a little bit because
Okay.
that's like the mysteries and magic and secrets.
Okay.
So
Now, which one was, I guess, your quote unquote favorite, and what did they bring to the table?
my favorite,
Yeah, which one did you? Because you had Raphael that you worked with that did the healing. You have a
I think
couple.
Azrael, or not Azrael, I'm sorry, Raziel.
Right,
Because Azrael is the angel of, well, they call him the angel of death, but it's really just guiding to other sides transitions. But I think Raziel was probably my favorite just because I connected with him and started working with him a few years ago. when I started to delve back into my gifts. Rainbows started appearing around me in pictures. Other people noticed it in pictures they were taking too. And that
Really?
him is Rainbow. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And how
Yeah.
did that correlate to like the way what you do in terms now of your, intuitive living and kind of mentoring people?
I mean, really, the way that I work is very, to put it, earth nature based. I'm not Wiccan, but you could call it something like that. Like it's so my messages come intuitively and I feel them in my body.
Okay.
Sometimes, like, as an energy, and then I have to kind of decipher the energy. Sometimes I get visions, like while I'm awake. Sometimes I get them in my dreams. Um, Sometimes I'll hear a voice or feel a touch. So yeah, I mean, it depends. It could come in any way. So
Really? Can you
yeah,
describe a dream or something that you had? So at least somebody the audience can know a little bit.
gosh, I had a dream about 30 years ago that I was driving behind a white semi and I didn't know what happened. All I saw was the back of the truck, and all I knew is that I died.
Really?
Yeah. So for all those years, I was very careful behind big white trucks and would usually like move myself out of the way from them. Um, Probably, I think it was last year, my son and I were driving down the street and we are behind a big white truck. And all of a sudden, I look up and it was on a trailer and it was coming towards us. And I had already slowed down to try and remove us from behind it because I had been watching all these years for what I had seen or waiting. And yeah, it was coming towards us, and I had stopped far back enough so that it didn't land on top of our car. Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with like having those kind of like dreams, those kind of intuitions, and at the same time living your life here in a 3D world? And how do you balance that?
I mean, I keep a close circle of friends who understand that I'm different and they can support me.
Yeah, that's the
Really, I
way.
mean, yeah.
It's kind of the
Well,
only way, like in the sense of small community, right? Go ahead.
right, exactly. Well, and I have to keep my energy very grounded, centered, and balanced so that I can get the messages and I can do my work.
Okay. Is that kind of meditating, balancing your chakra?
Meditating and being careful who and what I'm connecting with. Everything has an energy, or we're all energy. Everything is. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine. Uh, the gift of sight, right? The intuition, the dreams, everything else kind of going through it. Like I really can't see much at that regards, but I do use my intuition. But you're in another level when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then sometimes I'll have where spirit will kind of just take over
Talk to me
because
more about
a
that.
message needs to be delivered to someone. So last summer, I found myself fighting over a beverage frother with the man that I was working for.
Tell me more. Go ahead. Keep going.
As it turned out, it had connected in with a spiritual journey that I wasn't aware of that he had taken 4 weeks before.
Really?
Yeah, for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to say any more.
Yeah,
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 but
yeah.
it was actually tied into his journey. So
Really? I
of
can
letting
imagine.
go,
Real. Oh, I guess. I see. Damn.
letting go. Yeah.
Even the smallest thing about just a small little frother, and then it's about a
Yeah.
whole
And we were having, and I'm
situation.
like, I don't understand, like, why. And I felt so uncomfortable when it was happening, Raphael. And I'm like, why am I fighting over this frother with this man? Like, this is really weird. And neither of us wanted to let go. And finally, I was like, okay. And I just let him have it. And from then on, it
Interesting.
was a back and forth, him letting me take things from him and me letting him take things out of my hands. Yeah.
Crazy. Now, after all these journeys and this awakening now, how did that because I know you do intuitive like coaching and mentorship and everything else, but I know one of your biggest advocate that you do is about communication and relationships and things like that when it comes to the divine masculine, divine feminine. So I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about how do you incorporate that in your awakening process to relationships and the communication that's kind of suffered and lacking in today's world, right?
It is. A year ago, I made a commitment to change the way that I relate to the opposite sex, actually to everyone, but especially to the opposite sex. Instead of seeing people as a possible role filler in my life, I view each person that I meet and each connection as a valuable, precious soul because that's what we all are. I value the connection. I allow it to form organically between us. And you can do that only when you aren't focused on an outcome.
The
So
attachment outcome,
the
right?
attachment, yeah, to an outcome. Like, how are you valuing me, or how am I valuing you if all I'm thinking about is what the role I want you to fill in my life?
I know I struggled with that in my past as well in terms of the attachment and just like why doesn't that person, let's say, act accordingly to the way I want, or what am I chasing, or vice versa? Because we all have our demons, we all have our fears that we lack. And I think a key word that I wanted to touch about is fear, right? I think a lot of us are just scared.
Absolutely. I think there's just a lot of fear between the masculine and the feminine, especially, I mean, men. You guys were more, had it pounded into your head that you're supposed to look strong and tough and not show emotion. So you just try and stuff them all down. And then you have heart attacks early in life. And yeah, like massively bad things happen to
Yeah.
our men just because they think they're not allowed to have emotions. And
Let's get
I, huh?
go ahead, go ahead.
I was to say, I think there's just a lot of fear surrounding the connection between masculine and feminine. And I think a lot of it is just not knowing how to talk to each other and share those emotions and drop into our heart center where we can connect that way, get out of our heads
And
and
that's a
other
good one.
places of our body.
Yeah, like my calling has been to do exactly that, to kind of like help men in the masculine drop into their heart space. So let's dive a little deeper into that. So
Okay.
so how do you think? Because you're right, we've men were taught to lead the way. I know even young kids now, even in high school, are already have anxiety, built anxiety because they need to lead already. They want to make their $1 million. They want to be successful and be this pioneer, but they forget who they are in that process, right? And
Yeah.
I know we talked before. I've never had in terms of the support that I've gotten now in my life compared to from the divine feminine because it's not what we're programmed to do. We're programmed just to lead, 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 no support, and there's like a criticism and an expectation that comes with all that, right? So I
Yeah.
want to dive
Absolutely.
even more deeper into that.
Yeah. I think men really have this focus where they feel like they have to provide and be self sufficient. And when men and women work together, even in a friendship basis, like all of my connections, I approach it from a friendship basis so that it can unfold organically. Um, when you do that, I think it's still important to support each other as divine masculine and feminine. Like I'm sitting here supporting you in this new endeavor that we're working on together, and it's going beautifully because you bring in that divine masculine energy, I bring in that feminine, and then we have creation. So,
Isn't that, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's like one of the main things that I've never experienced before. And just having this like connection and everything else, I've attracted so many other divine feminine in that way and that support system. Um, and it's sad because society now, we're lost in the thick of things. We are
yeah,
so lost. Everybody's chasing their insecurities, their validations, right? They're chasing everything that instead of looking within, they're looking without, right?
right. Everybody's dating their wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we haven't healed our wounds, we're going to date them. And that doesn't mean that anybody has to be 100% healed. That means you and I, everyone, we have to be willing to really take honest looks at ourselves and go within about our wounds, our triggers. And then it's a regular practice. That's why I meditate every day. because if I have an issue, it comes up in my meditation and I see it. And later I'm like, all right, either I feel through it then, because sometimes big emotions come up during meditation. Like people think meditation is supposed to be this quiet space where you just go into Zen. But a lot of times that's where big emotions come up, and it's okay to feel things, cry through it. And then you might get to your Zen place. Sometimes I get into the transcendental meditation, and I'm up in another field with source. I'm not even here anymore. I'm in the cosmic womb, which is great, but I don't get to do that all the time. Sometimes I'm just having big feelings and emotions from wounds and allowing myself to be honest with what I really feel.
Yeah, because I think we forget, especially for males, we forget that we're in the wound. We're born from that wound, right? And it's the
Yeah.
same concept into source and having that wound. And like even with me, the way I've used the shadow work with that, you know how many times I've cried in my bathtub or cried to release emotions and not suppress them and really go into that. I mean, it's helped me so much. And I used to think that meditation was like I have to keep quiet, like you said, but it's not. It's not.
Right.
It's not about that. It's like filtering your thoughts and organizing to and applying it to your highest self.
Yep.
Is there any other things you've done to kind of go into that space and kind of help?
Yeah, I actually started working with plant medicines a couple years ago, and ayahuasca about 9 months ago. I now have a long-term relationship with ayahuasca,
Okay.
which means we don't just work during the ceremonies. We work sometimes in my meditations with big feelings and emotions. I mean, that's what the ceremonies are. We're there to feel our feelings, to admit the subconscious fears, thoughts, wounds that are trapped and that have us stuck. That's what it's about. It's that deep work.
And then it doesn't help either that in today's society, it's like it's made for you to split, right? It's put us in a separation. I feel like 99% of everybody is just walking in their own ego and their own I, and they're all separate. Nobody wants to work together. They villainize a woman for their intuition and back in the day, but the Egyptians, I know you have some comments on this, was a little bit
Oh,
different.
yeah.
And then for males, it's all about work, 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 grind, 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 and do something else, and then they split us. And then when we do get together, it's like physical attraction. It's like dating our traumas keeps coming back. So you're right. That's the best part of it. Like that slogan, we date our traumas, is like should put on a t-shirt and
Yeah.
walk around with that one. So what
Yeah.
do you think about all that?
Which part?
Let's talk about the intuition, how back in the day women were valued for intuition, and also the Egyptian culture and how that
Oh, in the
changed.
Egyptian culture, before we started burning people because we thought they were witches.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently we're gonna get
Egypt,
burnt.
yeah. Egyptian culture. Um, the masculine and feminine had a very honoring relationship. Women really revered the men, and the men really honored and revered and protected the women. It was a different kind of balance, where the masculine and the feminine worked together like we're supposed to, before we got all this programming from society that shaped us to be good little worker bees that don't feel anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to Ram Dass's, and he's talked about not even that we were programmed there. It was our parents' program to their parents' program, and it's so much unwinding because what we do, people think spirituality is like easy, but it's you have to be the generational, you have to break that whole generation of like traumas and
Oh, yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah. I'll have to tell that story one day about what happened with my family when I became the cycle breaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to basically feel the feels like you talk about. It's
Yeah.
generation. I know I felt like my mother's and past and everything else and just breaking
Mhm.
those, but and we'll talk more about in the future in terms of the ayahuasca thing, but I also use the plant medicine, but just the microdosing has helped me too. So
Yeah.
there's always like a breaking point when you want to substitute all the medications and everything that you take and actually work on your brain and work on your mindset, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, microdosing, I've done that before too. I really like it. It's really good for
Yeah.
anxiety and helping rewire your neurological pathways.
And what do you think? What do you think the feminine? What do you think they struggle in the most? I know the men are struggling with like the support system, the fear, the expectations, and what do you think the other side is struggling with most?
Women, we are overly in our masculine because we haven't felt safe spaces with men
Yeah,
or
let's go
had
deeper into
sound
that one.
leadership. Yeah, or had sound leadership. So men, like, it's this, we we're not going to let go of protecting ourselves until we consistently feel safe. Like it's one of those things, and I'm not sure if a lot of men even know that that's something that they need to provide for women to open up, because we're not taught these things.
Should put
We're
it in our
not.
school curriculum.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I wish.
Yeah.
That'd be our
Um,
revolution right there.
you're, I mean, you're so right in that. Like, I speak to multiple women, and I always see that you ladies are always in your masculine, and it's rare to see a woman in true her divine feminine space. But you're right. It's like I wouldn't trust a man. I wouldn't trust him. I would be in my masculine in terms of my guards and protection, right?
You got to make sure that we're safe. I read something the other day that I found interesting, and it said that between a divine masculine and divine feminine, there's actually something that happens when the relationship starts where the divine feminine, her internal divine masculine, rises up against that exterior divine masculine to test him,
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
sure that she's safe. And I didn't know that that was a thing. I read it the other day, and it said it actually has to happen for the relationship to be solid and for the woman to soften and the man to step into that role. Like it's something energetic.
Yeah, now that you think about it, like I think about all the past relationships or all the past people I met. It can even be professional. There's always some kind of test, right? Subconsciously, it just raises up. I can see that when they test you and they're like, no way, whoa, whoa. And then if they get away, quote unquote, away with that kind of behavior, the subconscious, then it's over because you're starting the relationship off on the wrong foot, right? And
Right. Well, and you don't want to, like, if a woman was to test a man in that way, or let me say if she didn't instead, if she didn't test him and she just accepted it without seeing that safe, protective space with him, it can actually do more harm in the relationship and cause it to not work, because it's that proof. It's like, well, okay, you say that you really care about me or you want to be in this space with me, so show me that it's safe.
yeah, yeah. But then they end up being in that relationship, right? Because they settle, they date their traumas, and then you
Right.
end up having kids and a family to a relationship that, and then now you're starting to get divorced, and you're seeing a lot of numbers of women stepping up and getting out of that kind of relationship because there's a lot of women waking up in today's world.
There are men too. You guys just are waking up a little bit more slowly.
Like,
Yeah,
like,
not as
like a
many. You
turtle.
guys, I don't, and I'm not sure why, and maybe it was just for the supportive side, but when I talk to the women that I work with, they always ask me when the divine masculine are coming, because we want to support you guys. We need you guys badly. Women aren't safe in this world without divine masculine protection physically. Like we need physical protection, we need safety. So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And if I think about it, if I step back and think about what you just said, it's like maybe because every woman that I talk to or I do a post or something are saying, where are they? Where are they? Exactly those comments. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm working on it. I'm trying to
Yeah.
help. But, and you've been on this journey since you're small. A lot of women that I know are been in this journey for a long time. And did women in the past be revered for? Their intuition, their insight, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's just there's so much built up to that I come to you as a divine masculine and have awareness, and you have all this knowledge that I was seeking, and you know how to support me. So it's like maybe that was the only reason I can think of right now. That's the reason why.
That
But
would
we
happen.
are slow. We do develop a little bit slower, and then by the time we develop, we have to go through another development, and it's all about the heart, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Dropping back down into that heart center. That's what I believe the whole divine masculine and feminine relationship was created for. Because in that space together, when you drop into your heart centers, when the woman knows that she's safe and
Yeah,
she can relax and soften and drop into her heart center, that then allows the man to do the same. And when you meet and speak from your heart center instead of from wounds that aren't necessarily from that person or shadows, or, like when you drop into your heart space, you can talk about those aspects without tearing each other apart.
you can actually communicate, have a communication in a
Right.
healthy
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like have healthy communication. So,
Man, it just makes me think about my past and how much, like, yeah, I've chased my wounds and dated my wounds because I wanted to be seen and I wanted to feel that nurturing side
mhm.
because of the love that I never really truly had or wanted.
Yeah.
And it took so long to do it now, but I've developed a like now I come into a room and then I can be in my heart space, but I can have, let's say, you in the room and you can still feel my masculine energy there and drop into your feminine space with me being in my feminine space as well.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but that's okay, right? Like, go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. That's the whole thing because you don't want to push too much polarity in a relationship. I think it's really important to have both a connection with the divine and then having united and balanced our masculine and feminine within ourselves. That way, when we go into a relationship, we have to allow each other to move in and out of masculine and feminine energy because that's what it's made for. We're supposed to kind of move. Like the feminine is the flow and the creation, and masculine is the action. So
Yeah.
it's and the protection. Like it's different aspects, and there are so many of them. If you look at them and break them all down, it's really fascinating.
It is. I talk to a lot of the young generations, like in the 20s, a lot too, because I think they're one of the most important ones for the future of this world, for everything else. And you're right. There's a big part about that. It's like, what do I do? Well, you have to drop. Action is actually a skill set. So
Yeah.
it's like a muscle that you work out. So you have to learn how to drop into your heart, maybe plant medicine, whatever it is, feel those feels, but then also take action because if you don't take action, you're going to be stuck in that loop. And we've talked about that loop a lot that you get stuck on and then and it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, you have to actually, that's integration. You have to
Yes.
actually do that work, your shadow work, work on your wounds. And then what we're doing, instead of casting parts of ourselves to the side, we say, okay, here's my little shadow that likes to have fun sometimes in this way. I'm not going to tell you that you're not allowed to exist. I'm going to tell you that you can ride in the car, but you don't get to drive unless it's your turn.
Yeah. And that's the beauty, and that can be applied to so many other things, right? In the
Yeah.
relationship, and like we talk about,
Yeah.
it's and also the attachment. I think that's a big one too. Like we talked about a little bit, the attachment to the expectation of where the relationship is going to go, and not
Yeah.
communicating that with the partner, right?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. As long as there's good communication between two people, like I explained, the way that I am connecting with men is really building it as more of a friendship instead of rushing into things. But obviously, if mutual feelings were to arise, there would need to be conversations. That's why people have to be conscious enough, honest, transparent with each other. And all the men that I connect with and the women, but especially with the men, like respect, integrity, honesty, authenticity, compassion, kindness, love, inspiration. Um, I have certain characteristics because each relationship is a container. You and I have an energetic container. If we aren't in those principles and energies in this container, you're not going to feel safe enough
No.
to be raw and vulnerable and honest with me. You're not going to be able to work through your wounds because you're going to be scared. And so would I.
Yeah.
So,
It wouldn't align to us, right? It was just we'll instantly feel it and not try to force the situation because you're right. If I get the right energetic exchange, I'm an open book. I will be as raw, as vulnerable, as authentic as I can be because I don't
right.
operate out of a fear base. But that's
Yes.
definitely what's about the balance. How's your dating life has been with when you think about it this way in your awareness and then talk to me a little bit about your dating life.
Um, I don't think I've really had one for the I mean, I do talk to I probably have, I don't know, a handful of divine masculine including yourself that I connect with on a regular basis that I know are in their divine masculine and offer support. We offer support and we hold these containers. I wouldn't really call it dating. Nothing has gotten beyond a flirting level in the last almost
Networking.
year. Huh?
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
call it
like
networking if you want to call it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard. I don't know. It's different because I've done all this work and I've gone through all of this stuff and inner child work. And I realized that my inner child never had the chance to choose
Yeah.
her, her first partner or
Yeah.
her, like, in a lot of things. So now that I know that I have the ability to choose,
Yeah.
I'm way more careful about what I intuitively feel, and if I'm not comfortable, I kind of just ease out. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the other person. It just means that maybe it's not the right connection. Like if you can't talk through it and continue it, then sometimes it has to end in that capacity, and that's okay.
Isn't that the beautiful quote about it all? You never was able to choose. I think about that. That resonates a lot with me because I start thinking about it. I was like, that's right. I really never had the option to choose, and I was operating out of the fear base and just wanting to be loved and wanting to be cared for, but it was never really a choice, was it?
No, no. Like when I think back, like even all of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
all of it.
And then now here we are choosing to go on this path of awareness, but somebody has to match our freak and intensity, right? They have
Yeah.
to match the work that we put in, but then that also speaks about what you attract.
It does. And as healers, we don't always attract in our energy for everyone. We don't always attract our energy. However, we will always attract back in the lessons that we have not learned yet to heal our wounds. So if we have one stuck there, like recently for my last ceremony, which was maybe about a month ago, if that, I was working on father wounds, and that's a deep wound. I was working on the father wounds.
Elaborate that a little bit more. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that one.
Oh man, that's a whole thing because it's those father wounds and mother wounds, and I have both. It's those that keep us from authentically and deeply connecting with the opposite sex. Like it's those wounds that keep us from deeply connecting with those aspects within ourselves.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I don't know how to hold space for my feminine energy, I can't hold space for yours.
Kind of the analogy where the cup is full. Your both cups have to be full before you
Yeah.
can pour into the relationship.
Absolutely. Well, and not only that, but until somebody has learned to do something for themselves, they can't do it for another person. When I was looking back at my relationships, the last one I was in was over 2.5 years ago. And I looked back at it and I was like,
It just doesn't work, right? When you look back at it, it's like I
yeah,
expected that person to choose me or that person to be that
right.
nurturing side, but they didn't even choose themselves.
Right, right. Well, that was the whole thing. I looked back and I was like, man, like I was asking him to protect me and he couldn't protect himself. I was asking him to um, be honest with me, and he wasn't honest with himself. I was asking him, like all the different things. Once I
Yeah.
saw it, it just kind of really made me sad because I don't stop loving people. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand about me. I literally love every single person on the face of this planet, from the best people to the worst people. I just don't have to like everybody. And some people I have to love from a distance
Yeah.
or with really good boundaries, and that's okay.
That's a whole other subject, a whole other podcast on boundaries.
Yeah.
Let's not even
Oh,
get that
yeah.
started. It's like this is the second time I've heard about this. The Ram Dass book that I'm currently going, Becoming Nobody. He speaks exactly the same thing that you're saying. He loves everybody, regardless of where they are, because they're just journey. They're not a male or female. They're just souls. They're just
Oh,
incarnations here, and they're
yeah.
in their own journey. But at the same time, they're like just love them for what they are, provide them a hug. There's people that go around. Look, I got chills right now that you can go out and you can just hug somebody, and
Yeah.
and that person can probably never been hugged or loved in their life, and that can change the whole perspective of everything. Like everybody
Yeah.
just wants to be loved, right? That's embedded in our core.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's okay. And I think the hardest thing for me recently was admitting that I do want love and I do want a partnership. Like I do want union. And it was really hard for me after having to be independent for so long to admit that to myself, because then the wounds, I'm like, yeah, I want to love. And then you're feeling this love feeling, and then you're feeling all the wounds of the last time you tried to love.
Yeah.
And it's
So
scary. You're
it's
like,
the scariest thing in the world. It's like, so you were operating from your masculine, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm ready to love and drop into my feminine. But then as soon as you drop that, your red flags and your everything's like,
yeah,
whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah. And that was just a meditation by myself. That's just be real. Admitting it to myself. It's so funny, the things that we are afraid to even admit to ourselves. And if we can't admit it to ourselves, we can't work on it. Like you have to acknowledge to be able to take action on something.
Yeah. I have a lot of clients who talk to me and they're like, well, how do I know this is good for me? Or how do I know this is the start? And it's like, you already know the answer. You always know the answer.
Yeah, how does
Like,
it feel?
yeah,
Go
exactly.
inside. Like, does it feel right to you? With the intuitive mentoring, it's very, because that's how I live. It's the intuitive living. It's what aligns with me and my path, what feels right. And that's something I focus on in meditation. If something isn't aligned, it comes up in meditation. Or if I have an issue, I'll sit with it and ask spirit what I should be doing with it. So discernment is huge. I think that's another big thing too. Like, I don't want to date a man who isn't practicing regular meditation and actually using solid discernment. I don't know
Yeah.
how to trust somebody that's not. I'm being honest.
I mean, for meditation, for me, what it did is like somebody gave me an example of like you have a painting and it's just gray. It's like a gray cloud, right? And that's your whole life, and everything is always gray. Everything's never working out in your favor. But then
Yeah,
when you expand in the meditation and you start realizing, you start seeing the cracks of actually there's a sky behind it. There's blue, there's light, there's hope, and it's just that small ball, and then you just expand your mind or give more space for your mind to expand. And but it
absolutely.
doesn't necessarily always have to be quiet in your mind. It's just the organization of your thoughts and your consciously higher self, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's I didn't understand that at first, and I was like, why would I do yoga? I'm a man. Why would I
Yeah, yeah.
meditate? I'm a man. Why would
Right.
I do this?
Yeah.
Like all the subconscious
Mhm.
behaviors that are programmed in my mind, and then here
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, and here you are. And meditation, yeah, we're connecting with spirit, whoever our source is. And then we're also connecting with our true self, like our highest self and just our essence at the core.
And how do you know it's your highest self? How do you know you're connecting to that? If for the audience that maybe doesn't know how to practice these meditations or just starting to learn how to meditate.
I mean, really, as far as starting with meditations, everybody has a different way of doing it. I use rapé on a daily basis, which is a sacred tobacco snuff, and it grounds me and it gets my energy right so that I can go into a meditation, a deeper meditation. But some people don't use that because it's not the most pleasant experience, but it's very beneficial. Um, so there are many different ways. I like to pick music that feels relaxing and calm, is maybe focused on what I'm working with presently, so that I'm bringing into meditation what I'm actually working on. Because if we're intentional about it, it goes to this whole other level. As far as discernment and connecting with our higher self, that's so personal because we have to connect with the divine and ourselves, and we have to feel that connection. So it really goes back into intuition and what feels right for people.
Yeah, you're right. And I start my meditations every morning when I wake up. I actually write down a whole page of things that I'm grateful for. So
That's awesome.
it puts me in that mood. And part of just to piggyback what you were saying before, I'm grateful in my life because I was raised by grandparents. So they showed me what a female, male, very traditional grandmother, grandfather. Like he cooked it, she put the plate there, so like
Um,
that showed me the where the space would be, and I think I learned a lot from that. And then got that kind of ripped for me. But then I
mhm.
started to learn more. So I always had those. I was fortunate enough to have them in my life, and I still do. They're part of my spirit guides and team. I know that for a fact. But I start with those kind of like meditations, gratefulness, and then try to go into it. And it doesn't have to be long, right? I use a
Yep.
15-minute powerful meditation, and it doesn't have to be as long as you just do the act, like the gym.
Right. Just do it. Just sit there with yourself. I mean, sometimes I've actually done just active meditations. A walk in nature can be a meditation. If you're able to go into that space, that other space where you are present in your body. I think that's the key with meditation is getting present in your body.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's and like you said, I don't even have a lot of nature. I need to do a better job and hold myself accountable to be in nature because we are nature. We are all connected. Everything is connected. Nature creates, we create, everybody creates, right? But then
Yes.
I think we get lost, and then we end up in back to this dating cycle, and everything's about sex and short-term dopamines and society of like who's wrong, who's right. That's the other part. You love every soul, and we love every soul. But
Yes.
I just remembered another crucial part is people always want to be right,
Mhm.
and I think that's a
The
big one
ego.
in relationships.
It's the ego. Like you got to drop down out of your ego and love yourself and the other person more. See each other as souls
Yeah,
instead of, I don't know what we see other people as, because I don't, it's crazy because even the worst people, because I can see what their potential would be, and I can see their wounds, and I can see their heart and how broken it is. And it just breaks my heart.
yeah. The ego is sticky, and
The
when you
ego is
combine the
great.
ego with the fear, and it becomes the most stickiest product, stickiest mindset, stickiest thing of them all.
Oh, yeah. Next thing you know, like you'll have made up this whole story in your mind about what's happening in his.
I have back when I was unhealed. Like I've made up so many stories in my mind. I'm like, that person doesn't like me because of this or that person. It's like, relax.
Yeah. We make up these stories in our minds. I know a couple years ago, I think, I don't remember where I was, but I was like, I need to quit thinking that nobody likes me.
Yeah,
Like I need to realize that there are people that genuinely like love to connect with me, and I need to quit thinking that people just don't like me until I see it, and then I know they don't, and that's okay too.
yeah. I mean,
That's
let's
okay
start.
too.
Let's start making a movement, like supporting each other in the both divine, masculine, and feminine, going through our fears and working through that, but also working through our own fears. Become a if you want to become a hermit, become stay in your own place, work through your stuff, like work
Yeah.
through it. Be honest with yourself, right?
Yeah, you really, and that's how we stay out of ego is by getting really, really honest with ourselves. Like there are definitely things on this journey with the plant medicines that I had to admit to myself that were really uncomfortable or painful or things that I felt, shameful about or had been shamed about that maybe weren't necessarily my shame to hold because that happens a lot in abusive situations. What actually happens is the person that is abusing, because I have a history of sexual abuse too, amongst others, the person that is actually doing the abuse is the abuser is actually projecting their shame onto
Yeah.
that person when they abuse them. So when we go into these ceremonies and things like that, a lot of the shame that we're dealing with isn't even our own, and we don't even know it.
I mean, let's talk about more. I just posted something the other day exactly for that thing about other person's energy brings that trauma, and the next thing you know, you're dealing with a whole vortex of trauma, right? Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's why we have to be really careful with our boundaries and who we bring into our, especially when we're sensitive. Like I'm very sensitive, so I think it affects me more. But I feel like it affects everybody as much as it affects me, possibly. I am just way more tuned in and aware of what it's doing to my energy and my
Yeah, and
body
then
because I physically manifest the energy. I get physical symptoms. Sometimes I can actually feel people's like ailments or wounds or so
really,
that's interesting too. Yeah, yeah.
and people need to. I think people also need to like pay attention to their bodies, like you said, but also understand that like if you open yourself up sexually or just by that person's energy, that's a big deal. Like I know people that are like, oh, I just met this girl in the bar, had sex with her, but then I'm not interested anymore. And it's like, if you
Mhm.
think about that, you just took all that person's energy and all the everything that encompassed that person's insecurities, vulnerabilities, fears, and now that's part of you, and it stays into it, and
Yeah.
you have to work
It
through
just,
that, right?
yeah, it's an energetic exchange. And that's a lot of people don't realize. And I mean, I used to engage in casual sex sometimes too. And I realized after having something deeper that it's just not fulfilling to me.
No, it's not.
No, it's not fulfilling to me. Like if you like deep connections, casual sex is not going to be fulfilling.
No, it's actually going to be opposite. In this
Yeah.
healing journey, I've noticed that even if you tried and go to old habits and things like that, you're just going to feel disgusted about yourself. You'll
Yes.
feel the resentment right away. There is no pleasure of
No.
anything. That's why I went celibate, because at the same time, I'm trying to
Mhm.
retain my power and not do that exchange.
Yeah, I know. That's why I did too.
It
It's
seems like
been
it's a
10 months
trade,
now
right?
and counting.
Yeah, it's like everybody who's in the spiritual path, some way, shape, or form, has gone through some kind of celibacy, and
Right.
retained their power and retained their energy.
I think we have to. Like, I think we have to create, we have to keep ourselves energetically clean.
Yeah.
And that life force energy is creation.
Yeah, and
So,
it's
and I mean,
decompressing.
here, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and here we are, like you and I, this isn't even a sexual relationship, but we're using that energy because that is creative energy. We're
Yeah,
using that energy to create this right now.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
that you even this has to be like filtered in a way and making sure we both have that nice energy exchange, right? And
absolutely.
but it's right. It's like almost like it's like an addiction, right? It's like we're all addicts in
Yeah.
today's society, and we want to just a little bit more rush. We want a little bit more validation, and we get into this sexual endeavors, and we get into these one night stands, and we do all these behaviors, and it's we don't realize that. But to break that, it's like taking away food from you. It's like taking away things that you're craving, your ego like thrives through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because just the things that we have to, yeah,
And then we sell our bodies online, and then we do a bunch of other things online that just puts more fuel in the fire, and it makes it hard to leave that situation and that mindset.
it does. And that's what you had just mentioned something and it brought something to mind. That's even like the whole thing as far as habits with pornography. Like the traditional
Yes.
heterosexual pornography is very objectifying. It objectifies women and it's not real sex. Like it's not even anything deeper. It's like, oh, anyway, but in saying that, I had to change my habits because there were years ago when I would engage in watching it. And I was like, wait a minute. This
Yeah,
feels really empty. And
it
then I
does.
had to, yeah, I had to take a good look at myself as far as objectifying myself or other people. I think women, we get objectified for our external beauty. And then we think that we have to keep this up and
Yeah,
spend a lot of money
yeah,
to stay as young looking and as perfect as possible to get and keep a man. And then we objectify you guys by wanting you to provide material things for us because we think that we need to keep that body to keep you.
yeah.
And
That's
you
exactly.
think you need to keep providing to keep us. And it's this cycle that men and women get in together and we're objectifying each other. And we never asked for this.
No, no, nobody did. It was all
You know?
embedded, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, like,
Mhm.
um, it's like pornography is the number one of the number one addictions, especially in America, right? All over the world, but like America is one of the most, I think, top one in terms of addiction to porn. It has destroyed a lot of my relationships because I thought I should act a certain way and thought I should be a certain way. And I thought I wanted that, but I was just chasing that. And if we want to even go deeper, there's like government funds and a bunch of other things that like sponsor those kind of porn sites and advertising and all that things that keep you addictive and keep you wanting more and releasing every power that you have in you. And that's when I noticed I
Absolutely.
needed to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why do we think that all of a sudden across our social media, Instagram and Facebook, there's semi-soft porn showing up on our screens? as we're trying, I'm about ready to remove everything from the phone that I carry on me and just stop, just because I don't like what's coming across there now, and I don't have as much control as I used to.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. My even in Instagram has been more showing more. It's been a little bit more graphic lately, which is
I
very
even
interesting.
reported one thing because I was like, this is really over the top. I was
Uh-huh.
like, and I was not trying to see this. I was like, I could see why our men are struggling right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, like when I was going there, because I was like, whoa, and I was like, yeah, I can see why our men are struggling because it's
And
getting shoved in our faces.
it is. It's like and it's so addicting. So it's like the easy fruit pickings, right? And like you're hungry, your system, your ego knows it wants it. You want that little fix like a drug addict, and it's like right
Yeah,
there in front of you, shiny, just presenting itself. And you're like, maybe one more bite, or maybe one more
yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
like it just
Maybe.
ruins.
No, That's why I had to, like you, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna be celibate until somebody takes the time to actually get to learn me like I learned them.
Yeah,
And it
it's
worked. And it
and it's
worked.
like that book that I was reading about Outwitting the Devil, right?
Mhm.
It's about like those addictions. Like I've cut coffee, I've cut pornography, I've cut masturbation, I've cut anything that's short-term dopamines in my brain. I wanted to cut off my life to say I have the power and I
Yeah,
can control my mind. And it's okay if you have coffee here and there. It's okay if you do a lot of other things, but it's being intentional and controlling your power.
exactly. Well, we have this funny we have this funny way of thinking that our mind controls us, and that's not how this works.
No, no, it's not.
We're supposed to be in control of our mind.
And that's why I love my physical activity because those are the times when your body's like, no, please, I don't want to work out right now. And I'm like, oh, you're going to learn today. You're going to learn who's the boss. I am the captain of this ship. Let's go. And that's why I love
Right?
those mind games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, workouts are great. It's good for the endorphins. That's actually part of integration when we do our plant medicine work. One of the things that we do is consistent training, working out.
It's part of
That's
it.
just one
I
of
tell
them.
all my clients,
I'm
you
sorry?
have to. I tell all my clients, you have to work out. You have
Right.
to
Yeah.
move your body. It's your vessel.
Yeah.
It's been here. It's like your spacesuit, as Ram
Yeah.
Dass said. It's your spacesuit,
It's
and
your
you learn
spacesuit.
take care of your spacesuit because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's not going to be there forever.
This body has to carry my soul for the next however many years, and I have mountains to climb and oceans to cross, swim,
Yes.
whatever. So it's got to keep going. So yeah, I invest in it. I'm like,
And stop
man,
living in fear of like the decay of the body because that's just normal. That's just the normal way of life.
exactly. I think that's easier for men than it is for women, though.
It definitely is.
I'm
It
gonna be
definitely is.
honest because yeah, being a single woman at 48, I'm like
Yeah.
the
We men,
pressure
yeah,
to look
we age
young.
like fine wine, if you want to call it. We look better in our upper 30s to 40s, while it's the other way around for women.
Mm. Yeah.
But after all this, I guess the big question is, what message do you kind of have for everybody listening? Is there one particular message that you have that you want to say out loud here, and for anybody that's listening?
I think the most important thing right now is to make sure that we're not getting caught up in our heads about anything because there's a lot of scary stuff going on in the world at large around us and within ourselves right now. So I think it's important to remember to continue to drop down into our heart center and act from there, and also connect in with that intuition because that is connected to the heart center.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful message too, because again, I think we both are in the same kind of field in what we're trying to accomplish here, and
Yeah,
everything involves into the heart center. Everything involves into the heart center, and we just have to
absolutely.
love and be kind to ourselves more, right?
Yeah, our original state is love.
Yeah, and we forget about that in everything that we do.
Yeah, our original state is love.
I think there's been pretty much songs about how love is the answer and love, love, love. I don't
Yeah,
know who sings this, but there's like some things out there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Love, love, love.
And if anybody wants to follow up and kind of look over your content and kind of like reach out to you if they feel aligned to, how do they reach you?
I think Facebook would probably be the best way to connect with me. On Facebook, I can be found. by SoCal Kiki.
Okay.
That's SoCalKaiki.
Okay. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I know I'll have you on again because we have so many other subjects to kind of talk about.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But today, well, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of having and just talking out in terms about everything you experienced.
absolutely. I appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate having you as a divine masculine friend. This is a beneficial exchange for both of us.
It is. It is. I
It's an honor.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.